Three Beards Media podcasts originate from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company.
Hey, welcome back to In the Side of the Storm, where we talk all things Cyclones. We are coming to you live from the Gravitate Co-working Studios, literally the Gravitate Co-working Studios, because all of us are remote today, and sponsored by our friends at Revelton Distillery out of Osceola, Iowa. I'm Dave Larson here with my Storm team partner and Cyclone great Marcus Pfizer. How are you, Marcus?
I wish I was doing better, coming down a little bit with this virus that these kids are spreading around, but trying to stay pumped up on vitamin C and trying to kick this thing as soon as I can.
Well, we all got a little adrenaline kick tonight.
A little bit.
Watching the Cyclone, two Cyclone greats, Brock Purdy and David Montgomery with the 49ers and the Lions. The 49ers come out victorious. They are heading to the Super Bowl to face off against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think outside of Kansas City, if you're a Cyclone fan, you're probably going to be cheering for the 49ers.
Absolutely. It was hard to watch, David and Brock go against each other, but it was a phenomenal game. I think that's the game we expected from the Ravens and the Chiefs, and didn't necessarily get it that way. But to see this game, play out that way, to be so close, it was very exciting.
Well, and didn't start off that way. The Brock had an interception early on, and the Lions actually scored on the first possession. Dave Montgomery scored a touchdown of his own, and we thought at halftime 24-7. It was not looking so good. So I'm going to turn this hat around in honor of Colin Cowherd, who seemed to think that Brock Purdy wasn't a Super Bowl quality quarterback. I think we now know that he is a Super Bowl quarterback. Chris Shipley, how are you today, my friend?
Man, that was amazing. I never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that we would see a story like that. Although I will continue to tout that when he got drafted, my first tweet was that he would be starting by the middle of his first season, because I just figured he was going to fit in so good to Shanahan's offense. But listen, let's just put to bed that whole game manager bullshit, because the dude was down 17 points. He led that team back. He scrambled. He ran. He made plays. They wouldn't have won that game without Brock Purdy.
And he made some tough, difficult throws. There was a couple that touchdown toss that put him up to Brandon Ayuk. That was a tight window that he had to throw into. You're right. Assistant quarterback does not make that throw.
Nope.
Assistant quarterback does not lead his team from a 24-7 halftime deficit to then propel his team into the Super Bowl. So, of course, we're all homers here for Brock Purdy and everything Cyclones. We certainly wish that on the losing end, Dave Montgomery didn't have to be on the losing end. But right now, we're all full steam ahead with the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that whole game manager, it's so ridiculous to even think about or talk about. First of all, he's the quarterback. And the quarterback is like the point guard of basketball. He's supposed to manage the game. He's supposed to manage the situation that he's in. I guess you just want him to drop back and just sling dingers no matter where they're going to go. Like, that's his job, to manage the game. And he managed to get his team to the Super Bowl. and I shut the hell up.
Well, let's compare that to the earlier game with the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson seemed to really struggle. And
Yeah,
we're talking, he was the leading contender for the MVP. And, I think that if they gave the season or they gave the award out at the end of the year, you have to look at Brock Purdy. You have to look at Christian McCaffrey. But Brock Purdy, the way that he led his team back in these last two games, both against the Packers, we got to remember he led them on a game-winning drive against the Packers as well. And then here they were down 24-7 against a really good Detroit Lions team, and they came out ahead. System quarterback or not, Brock Purdy deserves to be in the NFL.
I love it. Ward managed to make elite plays with his feet. Goddamn right.
That's right.
Listen, even RG3, RG3, who I can't say that I was a big fan of, before, but he's touting Brock. I mean, he is 100% on Brock. Brock Purdy is not a game manager. He's always been special. Program changer at Perry High School, program changer at Iowa State. He's not sneaky athletic. He is athletic. He's proven he can change the game. 21-5 as an NFL starter.
Right, and like this is his first season really starting a whole season, and
right,
he had some ups and downs to go through. He had to really go through the whole entire league and feel how it was going to be, mid-season, hitting a little wall, bodies banged up and things like that. But once we got to the meat of the season, you get a bye, weekends started to be a little bit longer than it was before. He has proven what you should do as a starting quarterback, and it doesn't matter how he got them there. They're there, and they're one game away from winning it all.
Well, let's remember they were in the NFC Championship game last year too against the Eagles, and if it weren't for that injury to his elbow, they might have been. This may be their second consecutive Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree.
Crazy. And the hype for this next 2 weeks is going to be crazy. I mean, you've got some serious narrative going into this game, obviously with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, Mahomes 4 Super Bowls out of the last 6 years, and Brock Purdy and Mr. Irrelevant. It's just I don't know, Christian McCaffrey's first Super Bowl. I mean, it's going to be a fun 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that game.
And let's remember one thing too, is that the 49ers had drafted Trey Lance to come in and to be that starter. And I can't remember if it seemed like Lance was the number one draft pick of that year.
They traded up to take him at 3. So
good point.
Yeah,
so
they traded up because they thought he was the man.
They threw a bunch of capital, got Lance. They thought he was going to be the guy. He wasn't the guy. They brought in Jimmy G. They thought Jimmy G was going to be the guy. So then number 3 on the depth chart the year that Brock was drafted was Nate Sudfeld, who was guaranteed $1 million. Teams don't like to throw money away.
All right.
So Brock comes in training camp. They were impressed enough to let Sudfeld go. They kept Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft.
Yep.
And then by the end of the year, by the middle of the year, Brock Purdy is your starter, winning football games, and nearly led them to the Super Bowl last year. And there he is this year. Just a phenomenal story. Love it.
Yeah, I called it. I said last year, go ahead and trade Trey, get some assets or whatever that you can for it and start Brock. And, he went, like I said, went through his ups and downs, and now they're in the Super Bowl. So it's a phenomenal story without a doubt. We never doubted him. We've seen him for years and years and years. Is expected from a young player just becoming a pro, because it's a different league. Like, those are grown men in that league. It gets to a point, and I can attest to it, it gets to a point in college where when you're an upperclassman, you become the man versus, the kids that are coming in. And there was times, on the floor, like, I didn't think there was anybody. That's why so many double and triple teams came that can really, really contend with my strength, my power, and speed and things like that. But once you get to the league, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So he had to learn how to manage all of that. He had to learn how to, pick apart the different things, because the corners are coming a lot faster. The safeties are just as fast as the corners. So then you got the big guys on the defensive end that are, 360, 370 that are moving, and before you know it, that pocket is a lot smaller. And so once he figured all that out, here we are.
Well, and as Coach Campbell has said, you go to Iowa State, you go up the rough side of the mountain. And I think that has, Brock has kind of gotten a little baptism by fire, having a rough time at Iowa State, having to play those teams and then that adversity that he had last year and then coming in and then some of these games that they said he played bad in. I mean, he led 2 game-winning drives in the last 2 weeks in the playoffs, in the NFL playoffs. 3rd youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, signed a 4-year, $3.74 million deal. He's 2 years into that deal.
He's due for a raise.
Wait until that contract comes due. Yeah. But you know what?
It's holdout time.
I would not be surprised as the type of guy that he is, that he would take a lower deal to sign the rest of his teammates to continue this go. That seems to me to be, because to me, Brock's whole persona is not about money. It's about promoting his faith and being a good teammate.
Well, and if you're Matt Campbell in the Iowa State football program, is he not case in point? Are you not walking around to every recruit just showing his picture going, you know who this guy is, right? You know we're in school, right? You could be in his shoes. That and following off the heels of Brock, we have Rocco Beck now, who he's actually breaking Brock's records as a freshman. Yep. So you're seeing some success then that can transfer over from the college game and from Iowa State University into the NFL, into the pros. This is probably one of the best times that you can be an Iowa State football fan, seeing some of these guys taking off and having some success, and some major success.
It's crazy. Cool.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit of basketball. As we talked last week, this was going to be a big week facing off against both of the Kansas schools. But before we do, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor, Revelton Distillery.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. The great thing about working from home is working from home. The worst thing is working from home, especially for face-to-face collaborations with customers and coworkers. And let's face it, coffee shop meetings are neither private nor professional. So skip the trip to Starbs and investigate Gravitate Co-working Space. For more than 10 years, Gravitate has provided large and small office and conference spaces perfect for hosting meetings, workshops, or other events, as well as private phone booths for confidential conversations. Plus, all spaces include secure fiber internet, free coffee, and access to a kitchenette. All you need is your laptop. Gravitate does the rest. And renting space at Gravitate is surprisingly affordable. An hour of office space costs about the same as venti caramel macchiatos and breakfast sandwiches for two. Daily and monthly rates are also available with no long-term commitment. Learn more at gravitatecoworking.com. That's gravitatecoworking.com.
It's funny, we're sitting here talking about Gravitate, and you can probably tell by the background, I am not at home, working out of the home office, but on the road. My daughter had a cheer competition in St. Louis, so that's the reason why my throat is a little bit scratchy myself. Earlier this week, we talked again last week before we went to break about this being a big week against Kansas State and Kansas. Earlier in the week on Wednesday, we played Kansas State, and Chris has some video of TJ Otzelberger and Jerome Tang having their post-game handshake, and really haven't seen anything like it before, but Tang had a few words in the middle of the game. He wanted to talk to TJ, and then they had a few words at the end of the game as well. Some word came out before the Kansas tip-off that Tang had brought up in one of his pressers or through the media, that there was some concern with some potential spying of the Kansas State huddle during the middle of the game. Marcus, have you ever heard of anything like that when you were playing both in college or the NBA?
I don't think Marcus has seen this. This is the confrontation after the game at the handshake line.
Fuck you, you fucking whore. Watch it.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I dubbed over that. I'm sorry. That's not the actual audio. That's what I dubbed over because it's pretty funny. But you can see he's pretty animated here. And he points to the crowd. So, yeah, he points to the crowd. Yeah, that was my edited video that I had where I dubbed some Sopranos over it. But anyways,
kids, earmuffs at home, kids.
Right. So, but here's the problem with this, right? After this in the post-game press conference, they asked TJ about it, and they asked Lang about it, and both of them said, "You know what? We had our discussion afterwards. It's over. It's moved on."
It was nothing, right?
Well, then Tang's sister started tweeting stuff out that, making rumors that there were racial overtones that were shouted out, and people were throwing stuff. And then it went out that Iowa State managers were taping their huddle and things like that. Obviously, K-State and the coaches leaked that. They had to have. That wouldn't have came from Iowa State. Iowa State wouldn't say anything like that. So then Sports Illustrated picked it up, ran a story, and then that kind of ran before the Kansas game. And then why don't you guys talk about it, and I'll see if I can find TJ's response.
So just a little wrap then. Kansas, we were up by 12 at halftime against Kansas State. Kansas State did come back, had me really nervous, but Cyclones ended up pulling that out. Milan Momcilovic had 19 points. Curtis Jones had another solid performance with 18 points. Keyshawn Gilbert had 15 points and 13 rebounds. Boy, he's been really picking it up this last week, really since Taman's injury last week. He's been a different player.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah, so Cyclones pull out a win, 78-67 against Kansas State, so they can go home. There is a return trip, I believe, that we have to go down and play Kansas State coming up in the last Big 12 game of the season. So we are going to get a chance to see them. And then turning to Saturday, kind of an interesting mix playing on CBS. I've seen some of the video. I don't know if you've seen that, Marcus, to compare the lighting or the visual of the ESPN version of a broadcast versus CBS. CBS really made it look great on TV. Here I am sitting at this cheer competition, watching it on my phone, and just going nuts and excited. People around me are going, "What are you doing?" But I didn't care. It was a huge game by the Cyclones against Kansas. Probably the highlight of the game, though, could have been when the officer came out and did Juicy Wiggle, of which I saw that Bill Self ended up coming out of his timeout early just to watch the performance of the cop doing Juicy Wiggle. Marcus, any thoughts that you had with that Kansas game? That was a big-time game against the Jayhawks.
Of course, that was a big game. It's one of those games that you sit and you watch and focus on the entire game. We're going to have runs. They're going to have runs. But we all know it's no secret that during those type games, especially at the Hilton, we lock in. Even if we're down in Lawrence, we lock in. Travis Rutherford even tweeted, well, we were on Instagram. He was like, you guys would have like the best shooting a night against us. And I'm like, bro, you know how it goes. You know how it goes on the road in the 12. So it was a good game. And even Sharon Collins, me and him was, going back and forth a little bit. They were commenting a little bit before and during the game, but after the game, it was like, yeah, that was a good game. But it's always going to be a good game. Like I said before, it's the reason why we have so many wins against top 25 in the last couple of years because, Big 12 is the best conference in the league in basketball without a doubt. We're not being biased. We're just stating the facts. And whenever you in the Big 12, you have to come through Hilton. You got to come through the Coliseum. And that's never been an easy place to win for anyone. So it doesn't matter what number you're going to have in front of you, number 2, number 7, number 25, you got to come through the Hilton. And, the magic is going to show up and our guys are going to show up and do what they're going to do. And, who I root for each and every time, my boy Trey King. I'm a big Trey King fan.
Love those big guys.
I love the bigs. He comes through with the physicality that we need, and then doing it. He's starting to figure it out. He makes a couple threes for us, keep them guessing, and we come out with the victory.
4 threes.
I like to see it. I like to see it. We just not fall in love with it too much, Fall in love with it. Next game, give me 18 rebounds,
but you got to admit those took you by surprise watching him shoot those threes, right? I mean, he doubled the number of threes in just that one game that he had all season.
It's the magic. It's the magic when you're rolling and you feel it. That crowd is going. It's nothing that you can explain. It's just that feeling when that crowd is rolling. You just feel that they're behind you. You just feel like the hoop is an ocean.
Let me remind everybody that we asked somebody on this podcast who was the go-to guy to go to at the end of the game. And I believe one Marcus said that it was Keyshawn Gilbert.
One player that could do that. I don't know that we do necessarily. I think we've got a bunch of teams that can, or a bunch of players that can score. I don't know that we have that go-to assassin. I trust Tane and Lipsy with the ball to get it to somebody. I just don't know that who that person is that you give it to at the top of the key that will score from a consistent standpoint.
Well, me personally, for 4.5, 5 years coaching against Keyshawn Gilbert here in Las Vegas, I saw a lot of early flashes of him being able to do that. I don't know if it's a different role for him at Iowa State. That's something that he has to progress into at Iowa State, but the kid has been an assassin for years here.
Seems like Marcus might know ball.
maybe a little bit. It's
maybe a little bit, right?
It's a little different here in Vegas, and people, full disclosure, just tend to stay their distance, which I'm fine with. It's not bragging or anything like that. Like, I just like sound basketball. I was taught the right way. I was taught how to focus on the different things that talented players have, and that different kind of grit. I wasn't the biggest player, 6'8", maybe 6'9", with my shoes on. Barkley said we got to play in our shoes, so why are you measuring me with my shoes off? So I'm going to go with 6'9". But just like I said, just knowing the kid for so many years, him playing against Marcus Jr. for so many years, playing against him in the AAU tournaments in high school for so many years, him and his brother, he got an older brother that's probably about a year or two older than him, and they were just these tough, gritty kids that, no matter wherever you faced them, they did not back down. And I remember the first time I coached against Keyshawn, like he was going at me back and forth. Never in a million years would assume he'd end up at Iowa State. Totally gratified with that decision, him transferring to Iowa State. But his coach came to talk to me. He was like, "Hey, young fella, he's trying to learn." I said, "I like him. I like him, man. I like that grit. I like that tenacity that he had, and he never backed down. He definitely beat us that game, and I became a fan from him ever since. And that was, what is this, 2024? That was probably in 2016, 2017. He was a young fella then. And so, for him to continue on, become an adult, young man that's looking to continue his success, I mean, I'm loving it.
So Keyshawn had 16 points and 6 rebounds, but none bigger than that 3-point shot near the end of the game. And then he came back with a quick layup that pretty much sealed that game. So 5 quick points there by Keyshawn Gilbert that was the difference in the ball game. Cyclones ended up winning 79-75 over Kansas. We talked a little bit about your big Trey King, 21 points and 9 rebounds. He really has been playing big in these last couple of games as well.
I love it. I love it. You know, the focusedness, it starts in that paint. And like you said, Robert Jones has been playing so well. You know, he's figured it out in the last couple of years, and he understands how to navigate and how to be effective. You know, just from top to bottom. You know, Taman was able to come back, and you know he's still getting the cobwebs out, but you know we're heating up at the right time, and you know with these homes and not aways in some of these games, you know it's a good thing to have right now, and I'm excited about the rest of the season.
Well, in my defense of that video that Chris played earlier, again, Heyman is the guy that stirs the drink. So you're right. He came back. He's another solid performance, 10 points, 8 assists. He's getting the ball in the hands of those that need it. And really, I think this group of Cyclones, they pass the ball really well. I mean, they're looking for the open guy. They're looking to push the tempo. I like what I'm seeing out of this team. They look like a top 15 team.
Yeah, that's the direction they definitely heading. And, you know, it's not about blowing anybody out. It's just playing solid. Like, this is the heat of the season where you really have to focus because, again, the Big 12 can change your season for the grade, or it can be, you know, a total disaster. And we've been through, you know, recently those disasters. Not since TJ's been there, you know, but since he's been there, he's been getting the ship righted. We've been playing well, and man, once we get to the tournament, you know, the rest is history. So,
well, we're sitting in a great spot, 5-2, a half game out of Texas Tech. We share the spot with Houston, and just a notch below us is Kansas State, and TCU, of which we all have a win over. So really, we sit 2 games up on those guys. We're looking pretty good. 7 games into the Big 12 season.
We do have a tough stretch coming up, though. We have a week off, which I'm a little surprised they're off for the entire week. I don't quite understand that. But Saturday at Baylor, and then Tuesday at Texas.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to that game. Return to see Tyrese Hunter for the last time. Looking forward to this week. But you're right, it gives us a little bit of time to work on some things, maybe get some guys healed up, particularly Taman Lipsy.
Yeah, and they're on the road 3 out of their next 4. So it's well, Marcus, you know, the Big 12 is no joke.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like you said, we're right behind Texas Tech. Texas Tech got, you know, more of those hard-nosed Vegas kids, you know, Darren Williams from Vegas, and I coached Pop Isaacs in high school. So I know the tenacity and the fire that he has in his belly. So when we run into them, it's going to be a dogfight as well. I'm looking forward to, you know, that matchup when it comes around. But, you know, going down there in Texas, whenever you got to get down there in Texas, is always a hard trek to get wins out of those tough-nosed teams down there. And, you know, playing against Texas is going to be exciting without a doubt.
Well, and Curtis Jones, again, another solid performance with 15 points, looking good. You know, Marcus, you made a good point earlier. I'd like to hear more information on that. The impact that Hilton Coliseum has on those players, both as a Cyclone and as an opponent. Share with us how the impact that arena has and the crowd has on you and the opponents that you're playing against.
Well, I mean, I've spoken to players, you know, opposing players, and they say, man, we hate playing up there in the Hilton. And I said, well, you know, we love it. You know? We don't see what you're saying, but you know, we know before, you know, tip off, run out, the crowd is going to be packed. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be something like you've never seen before, because, you know, the fan base at Iowa State University and the names is just phenomenal. You know, they pack the house to make you feel, you know, wanted, and you feel that sense of pride of wanting it to be better for them. You know, that was probably the number 2 thing for me, being better for the crowd. The first thing was, you know, being better men's basketball team because of how good Coach Finley had the women's team. So that was my first goal, being as good as they were. And the second goal was to, make the crowd proud, and everything fed into that. And, we were able to have some success. But, once the crowd is behind you, you think if you're up, they're loud. You get down and make a little run, make 2 or 3 shots, it gets really, really loud in that place. And you feed off that energy, and, the hoop becomes a total ocean.
Well, so my son was in attendance at that game, the whiteout. That looked really cool on TV.
It does.
That looked sharp. Did they have any of those games when you were a player, either a Cardinal Rules game or a Golden Rules game?
That was about 75 years ago. They wasn't doing the whiteouts, the gold outs, and anything like that. It was probably too white outside if people had on coats. So no, we never did anything like that.
No, but you had those awesome yellow uniforms.
Yeah, those were awesome.
Well, it's been a big week. They beat Kansas State, beat Kansas. Brock goes to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Tyrese Halliburton gets named an all-star starter for the Eastern Conference. That's just crazy to me. Probably the two best players, or the two most popular players right now in the NFL and the NBA, are Cyclones.
And those two were sitting in a class together as freshmen. That's how they got to know each other. It wasn't through playing fields or basketball court or hanging out at Lead. They just met in class like everybody else does.
Yep.
All right, so I think we're going to put a bow on this one. This has been a great week, as Chris said. The men are off until Saturday. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of the women. I caught a little bit of their game yesterday against West Virginia. It turned out to be a loss. I can't tell you exactly what their schedule is for this week, but tune in to more Cyclone Athletics Saturday coming up. We've got a game. Women, check their schedule out. We've got no more
women
NFL
play on Wednesday
until Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
Women are on Wednesday night. Oklahoma State
Wednesday night.
Oklahoma State at Hilton, and then they go to Central Florida on Saturday.
Ooh. So get up to Hilton this week if you can. If you're living down in the Florida area, make sure you visit Orlando and stop by to watch our women take on the Central Florida, whatever they are. And that's another edition of In the Side of the Storm. Everybody take care. It's been great seeing you, and we'll see you next week for In the Side of the Storm.
Stay healthy.
Go Cyclones.